Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 411. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what's going on?
The DC Comics podcast, we get together, we talk about the books we read this week. Coming up on this week's show, we'll be talking about Batman 148, Birds of Prey issue 10, Shazam issue 12. Matt will be checking in on Poison Ivy 22. We'll be looking at
23.
23, I just forgot to change the number then, forgive me.
Is that right?
And then The Boy Wonder issue 2 was out this week as well. Plus, I'll be doing a Patreon book of Batman and the Outsiders issue 14. So, yeah, plenty of interesting stuff to talk about this week. It's not a big week, it's still, we're still in this kind of era where most weeks, barring week 3, all the weeks are kind of quiet right now. But that's okay. We're here to have fun and talk about Cape stuff and probably complain about Batman, because that book's not that good right now. But hey, welcome everyone.
It's like getting a tooth pulled. It's like I know I have to get it done, but I'm not going to enjoy the process.
Very prolonged tooth pulling though.
Yeah.
Not until the run's over is the tooth finally out.
Yeah. Well, and this one definitely made me question things, but we'll get there.
Okay. Well, we'll get into all that in a little bit. So I know no real news this week from what I could see. Quiet on that front. It's a video game heavy week. The Summer Games Fest is going on. The Xbox have got their showcase tomorrow. The Summer Games Fest showcase itself was yesterday, which most of you won't care. They did show a Batman game off, but it's a VR only game, so who really cares? All dozen people who care about VR games, I suppose, but and you could tell that, like, the audience kind of like, oh, it's a Batman Arkham game. Like, the audience all went, oh, and then it said Meta Quest 3, and they all went, and came back down.
You had me, and then you lost me.
Yeah. I mean, there was a possibility we could have seen more of the Wonder Woman game that's in development, but that didn't happen. No one's showing that off yet. Instead, Warner Brothers showed off a Quidditch game. So
cool.
As you do.
That's a brand that's not flailing with his last gasps of breath.
Well, it's not insanely successful. It's just that anyone who's paying attention to what's actually going on with it feels, it's got a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of casuals who don't even know, like,
true,
what's happening with J.K. Rowling and everything else. So it's in a weird place. But honestly, it was a really dull show last night. Just not that this is what this show's about, but it was kind of a dull show overall.
Is that why they're examining the corpse of the Suicide Squad game? I've seen a bunch of posts.
Oh yeah,
recently.
I mean that's separate from this week, but yeah.
Okay.
Like that thing came out and flopped. Everyone pretty much knew it was going to flop. There's this sad thing in video games sometimes where they'll show off a game for the first time properly, where you'll see gameplay and all that. And sometimes the game audience just all looks at each other and goes, yeah, none of us want this, right? Like, no one cares, yeah. And that was the feeling with that game immediately. No one wanted a multiplayer, like, live service game from the people who made the Arkham games. We wanted a single-player game. We wanted something that was like maybe not a new Batman game, but, tackle a different hero, or even just an original thing, whatever. But it just very much wasn't that. And then even for people who like those types of games, they didn't stick around with it for very long. Yeah. So... yeah, the whole thing is just a kind of a sad state of affairs. I don't even know what else, if there's any other DC-related projects happening right now, but Wonder Woman's the main one that's supposedly happening, although other than one little teaser trailer like 2 years ago, we're still not seeing anything from it, so...
Okay. Yeah.
It could be the Xbox thing tomorrow, potentially, but I doubt it. I'm not expecting to see it.
This is how I feel when this is how Connor must feel when me and you talk wrestling stuff. Because now I'm just going,
So I'm just talking to thin air right now.
Well, I'm sure people that are listening do care. I'm just not a video game guy, So
I was trying to tie it into DC stuff as much as I could.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, if Connor was here, he would have opinions.
Oh, sure,
you know what I mean?
Would.
But me, I'm just going, video games.
Yes. Yeah, so that's going on this weekend. So there's a lot of news in a different art form, but not so much comic books themselves. I mean, it's possible there'll be a Marvel game showing off tomorrow at Xbox, because there's multiples in the works but I mean, I don't know if anything will be tied to that specifically.
So, when was the last time there was a truly great comic book based game? Was it the first Spider-Man game?
I mean, Spider-Man 2 was good as well.
Was it good too? I didn't hear as much,
just because it's kind of more of the same, but in a vacuum, it's still an excellent game. It's just, it's like, it's as good as the first one. And,
gotcha.
But yeah,
it didn't seem to leave that much of a footprint, not like the first game did. So that's why I didn't immediately think. But yeah, I don't feel like there's been a huge comic book based game that's really hit. So since then.
I mean, the first one was definitely a bigger deal when it came out, just because it was fresh and new and exciting and all that. But there's tons of stuff in the works. The people who made that are making a Wolverine game, so that's in the works. There's a Black Panther game at EA, but there's also a Black Panther World War II set game with Captain America, which did get a trailer a few months ago. It looked pretty. An Iron Man game's apparently... There's a bunch of Marvel games that are in development somewhere, but they've not shown a lot of them off yet, so we'll see how it goes.
Interesting.
Yeah. But, that's all I've got to report from the game stuff.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah. Not much else. Sad to say. But how was your week, Matt?
Oh, it was good. It was good. I hurt myself by watching the Iron Claw again because the wife hadn't seen it.
How did you hurt yourself?
Oh, that movie emotionally destroys me.
Oh, I thought you meant physically. I was like, how did? I was thinking, so you're watching the Iron Claw and you got so emotionally upset that you picked up the table and then threw your back out or so. I don't know.
No, just me sobbing uncontrollably and my wife asking me if I'm okay. Last act of that movie hits hard, but we also watched the documentary about the Von Erichs that came out a couple of years ago.
Oh, sure.
Just so she could kind of get familiarized with that family. And she was still surprised. It's a very well-made movie. Efron's still really, really good. And then we also watched Godzilla -1, which was my second go around. Just as great on the small screen as it was on the well, not as great, but you know what I'm saying. Just as engaging.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's two great movies for very different reasons. So.
I also watched that. What was that called? That really bad. You said it's a very watchable 5 out of 10.
Oh, Hard Ticket to Hawaii.
Hoo-wee. What a journey that was. At one point, my wife goes, "Why are we watching this?" And I was like, "You don't have to. I will watch it." And the toilet snake.
You see, wife, they are secret agents who like to get their boobs out every opportunity they have.
Any chance. Oh my goodness. And he has to use a bazooka because that's the only thing that can hit a moving target.
Including a blow-up doll, apparently.
Yes. Oh my goodness. The skateboarder? Oh man. Yeah. I definitely get so Pete had watched this, and then another one of our friends, Dan, decided to give it a go, and I was like, I have major FOMO. I got to know what this is about. And boy, did that leave an impression.
It's so funny because I watched that for a show I do on Patreon called Extra Reels, where we watch some of the worst movies ever made. Hopefully so bad they're good, but that's the premise of it. So if you're a patron, you'll get the review of that next month, or this month now, it's June.
Yeah, a bit of research showed that is considered the best B movie of all time. So
it's debatable. There's definitely some contenders.
I was like, I don't know who's made that list, but it came up numerous times as I was researching. So yeah, it's on Tubi. If anyone's interested, give that a watch. Then watch, sign up for Patreon, watch Pete's review. But yeah, it's definitely a movie that I've seen and I will not forget.
Yeah, if you want more in that vein, check out Miami Connection.
Still have never actually seen that, but I know of it.
You should. They're a band who's also a team of martial artists who will take on the underworld.
I love it. My wife Ash, she did say, she goes, "Man, that movie was bad, but it's compared to The Room, it's almost comprehensible."
Also,
and I was like, huh. You know?
I didn't know this when I was watching it, but turns out Hard Ticket to Hawaii is actually technically the first in like a cinematic universe, because some of the characters show up in the director's movies repeatedly after that.
Oh boy.
So, yeah.
Gotta love the gall. You know, they'll be like, we're gonna make these, we're gonna pump them out, and people are gonna want to watch more of them.
Yeah, well, remember there's a scene in the movie where they're talking about the fact that one of the girls has all these movie posters?
Yes.
Guess who directed all those movies that those posters are of?
Let me guess, the director.
Yes.
Yes.
In fact, if you look very close, because I did when I was watching it, I'm like, can I make out his name on the poster? And it did say directed by Andy Sedaris on the poster that was behind her.
I also figured they were talking about family members, and so I'm wondering if the cousins are the other characters in these other movies then.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah.
Yeah, hell of a time. Hell of a time.
Trying to say, what else have I watched this week?
Technically, it is on YouTube for free. However, it is edited on YouTube to take out all the nudity. So I would highly recommend not watching the YouTube version.
Yes. Yeah, you can Tubi, just sign up. But Tubi's free. So, you know, you just need an email. So I also watched The Beekeeper this week.
Oh.
The Statham, which they could have just called Jason Statham like 27. Wasn't nearly as tongue-in-cheek and cheesy as I thought it would be. They take the subject matter pretty seriously, and it's just Statham going through like a human wrecking ball, like in most of his other movies. But very surprised it didn't have any of the. It was the same director that did Suicide Squad and End of Watch, David Ayer. Didn't have a lot of his tropes, so it just felt like a typical action movie, which was nice. So. I didn't even realize it was him until the credits rolled. But yeah, if you like Statham, I do recommend.
Bold statement. What did I do this week other than just review stuff? I did randomly watch, because I got it on sale for like dirt cheap a few weeks ago, but I watched Breakdown starring Kurt Russell.
Yeah, not his best.
No, it's not very good. It honestly. Like, the opening's fine, but like, the more it kept going, the more it kept taking away from the premise that I thought it was and turned it into something kind of different, and I just wasn't as into it. So, I'd say it's a really mediocre thriller from the 90s.
Yeah, knowing, like, I know he's trying to play against type, but knowing his kind of like this nebbish kind of guy, it was hard to watch for me. Because, you know, Kurt Russell's usually the ass kicker type, and he's definitely not in Breakdown.
No. So, I mean, that wasn't even my problem. I just thought it got convoluted. It became more of a conspiracy thing than it was just like a creepy someone's kidnapped my wife story. It ended up being a way more. I don't want to spoil it, but it went down.
The guy that plays the main villain, the main who you suspect, what's his name? Dylan? Is Dylan? Or JB? I can't remember. It's one of you would know him. He's a 90s character actor. I thought he was pretty good. The time that I watched it, he was very sinister, and but yeah, he's really the only thing that stands out besides me not liking Kurt that much in it. It takes a lot for me not to like Kurt Russell, like, you know. But yeah, my new one I trick my wife with is Backdraft, because I just tell her that, you know, he's in the beginning, and then it came up on TV the other day. She's like, she's in this whole movie, or he's in this whole movie, and I was like, dang, you caught me. Because the game that I like to play is, do you want to watch this movie? And if she says no, I go, why do you hate Kurt Russell?
Okay.
It's a fun game. We're starting to run out of movies, though, because I made it through his filmography. So I'm going to start doubling back through it, hoping she forgets. But she never wants to watch Tombstone, which I don't understand. That movie's fantastic.
That's okay. You know? I love Tombstone.
Oh, I love it.
It's fine.
Yeah. I think that was I watched it as a kid on TV a lot, so I have a lot of nostalgia, like the good kind of nostalgia for it. Val Kilmer, Michael Biehn are both great in it. So,
well, it's got a great cast. I'm not going to deny that, but
yeah,
just didn't leave much of an impression on me when I watched it.
Oh
well. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll get into the order of events, starting off with the list formerly known as the Comixology Top 10. I'm not going to give it a new name. That's just that's just what it is. So look at Tuesday first. We don't have that much time left before it's one list again because
I know.
DC's going back to Wednesday.
So
but
I am now training myself to not start reading until Wednesday.
I'll try to get yourself prepped.
But even
for
though, even though that I can the ones that I read digitally, I can get Tuesday still. I don't want to get that used to it. So.
Okay. All right, what do you think number one is then for Tuesday?
It's sad that it's Batman.
It is sad that it's Batman. Yes, I agree.
And I don't say that as I think I moved on from my cranky Batman to where this one was like, yeah, but why is this one number one, guys? What are we doing?
Yeah,
but I know it's the main Bat book though that usually sells pretty well, regardless. So
yeah, the fact that it's a bad run just leaves a bit of a stink in the mouth.
Yeah.
What do you think number two is though?
Give me Birds of Prey.
It is not.
Oh, is it Boy Wonder?
It is Boy Wonder. Boy Wonder's number two right now on the Kindle rankings. Number three is Birds of Prey, and number four is Shazam. 5 is Kneel Before Zod. 6 is Poison Ivy. 7 is My Adventures with Superman. Number 8 is DC Pride. Not the one, obviously there was already the one shot. This is the celebration of Rachel Pollack one shot. 9 is Suicide Squad Kill Arkham Asylum. And 10, because we're at single issues, is Titans Volume 1, Tom Taylor's series. So we're at collections at that point. Volume 1 of Green Lantern by Jeremy Adams was also out this week. Oh, and Shazam Volume 1 by Mark Waid was also out. But good week for Volume 1's getting released.
How far does that go up to? Night Terrors, the Green Lantern one? Because you think it was 1, 2, 3, I think. And then
it collects 1 to 6 and Night Terrors Green Lantern 1 to 2.
Okay.
So it does have the Night Terrors issues, which I feel like I would recommend anyone reading this book to just skip those 2 issues and go straight to issue 3. But yeah, for completion's sake, I guess it's good that they're there. But yeah, oh well. So yeah, that's pretty much the DC side of things. If I look over though to Wednesday, do you have a guess for what?
I know, because this was all over the news, or Twitter news, anyways. I'm gonna guess that it's X-Men 35.
Yes, why was it on the Twitter news?
So it was the end of the Krakoa era. So they're rebooting X-Men yet again. And this was the end of that era that started with Hickman 5 years ago. So yeah, a lot of people memorializing it and for some of the things that it did or didn't do.
Interesting. I wonder if the new era will be a nice jumping on point. I'll be curious to see.
They get me every time they do this. I will check out at least the first couple issues before I fall behind woefully. Because I'm on a DC show.
Absolutely. That's how it goes. 2 is Ultimates issue 1. So that's the thing again. 3 is Scarlet, which is a independent Kelly Thompson book.
It's a G.I. Joe.
Oh, it's G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
I just saw
it's Kelly Thompson G.I. Joe, though.
I still don't care about G.I. Joe. I'm never going to care about G.I. Joe.
But I like Kelly Thompson.
I like Kelly Thompson. It's still there's other writers they've put on those G.I. Joe books I like too, and I'm still not going to try it.
But yeah. Let's see.
It's just never
I'm trying to see who does the art. It's Marco Ferrari, who did Frontiersman, who I'm not familiar with. So,
okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's a waste of talent, frankly. 4, Amazing Spider-Man. 5 is Wolverine Blood Hunt. 6 is Miss Marvel Mutant Menace. 7 is Blood Hunters. 2024A? What does that mean?
Where's that on?
So on Blood Hunters, right, it's issue 2, right, of the book. But it says, it's got the year in parenthesis after the title, but it's got an A after the 2024. Does that mean there's already been a Blood Hunters mini in 2024, and this is the second Blood Hunters mini? I
don't know. Maybe that was a like some kind of programming typo, because when I click on League of Comic Geeks, it just has it listed as 2.
Okay.
So, and on the cover, it's just issue 2.
Yeah, but Marvel have done this before though, where they've launched 2 number 1s of the same book in the same year, and you have to try and specify which one you mean. So
yeah. Although this looks like it's an anthology. It looks like there's 5 stories in here, so at this point, who knows?
Okay. Well, it may just be a typo on Amazon. May not be a big deal, but hey. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Alpha next, which is, I assume, a start of an event or something like that. Hence the title. Number 9.
The fall begins here on the top, so yeah, there it is.
Number 9 is Space Ghost Volume 1, Issue 2. Where to put Volume 1 in your title if it's...
Yeah, for reals.
And then number 10 is Get Fury, which is Garth Ennis on a gritty Marvel book once again.
So I guess it's going to be filthy as it is blood-soaked.
Probably. Probably. So yeah, I'm just skimming down. There's a bunch of Star Wars books that just didn't quite make the top 10. There's What If Aliens is a thing again. We talked about that last time it popped up. Yeah. That's, it's good comics.
Yep, it's true.
All right, there you go. That's the top 10. And like I said, not really any news this week. Quiet part of the month. Other things going on elsewhere. So I guess we can get straight in to the comics. Batman 148, Legacy number 913. Chip Zdarsky writing with Jorge Jimenez on the art. So this is not an oversized issue, but it is an oversized main story because instead of having a backup, it just got all the pages to do the end of its arc, which is fair enough. Like, it's a fine idea.
Yeah, they're cutting up to the start of Absolute Power, so I'm sure they had to wrap things up.
Yeah, possibly. It may have just always been planned that way to give it a bigger finale. Did I like the finale of this story? Well, I will say that... I mean, I didn't, obviously, right? Let's just get out of the way. But I will say, I don't know if I'd say that it introduced a lot of new things that I hate as a fresh idea, more than I just still hate all the things that's already set up and done.
Yeah, there are moments, like when
oh,
Bruce
wait, no, hold on. There's a thing with Jason later on that does piss me off that's new, so, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I was going to say...
Yeah, okay.
I didn't want to get there yet, but I was going to try to go on the positive. There's stuff where he's talking about the Robins that I really like Chip's voice for, because it just shows that side of Bruce that I like, that he's proud of his sons, and he might not always show it, but his internal monologue, he's talking about the boys and how he can count on them and all that type of stuff. So I liked all that. Just how the events unfold. Batman, or Robot Batman, and I don't care at this point. Like, I'm so out on Failsafe as a concept in Zur-En-Arrh. Well, not failsafe exactly. Failsafe is still kind of like, but the whole Zur-En-Arrh failsafe thing, I'm just kind of over it. Like, the whole idea of this is Batman personified. This is Batman without Bruce Wayne, and he's still about law and order, and he has his own private prison, and apparently that's okay. Apparently the mayor is cool with that. I
think the mayor is cool with that. I think it's very much the opposite.
That's what I mean. Until he sends the commissioner in to, who's now Vandal Savage, to get things under control. And I was just like, ugh, man.
I think okay, where do I want to start with this? All right. First up, we have this new Robin, right? We have. Oh
yeah. How did I forget this?
We have Zur-En Robin. I'm going to call him now.
Zur-En Robin.
We actually debated last issue exactly the origin of this character, and I thought it'd been something that Zur-En-Arrh had just been cooking up for a while. And you said that no, you think he done something to like clone or take something from Damian. And I didn't agree with you at first, but then I looked at the panels again and I said, oh, it does kind of look like he comes out of that tube after Damian goes in. There's actually a line in this issue that makes me think my original thought was right, because it says something about how he's actually a clone of Bruce. He's like a young Bruce clone, not a clone of Damian, which makes me think it was just something he was cooking up already.
He is Boba Fett from the Clone Wars. He is a clone of Bruce. That's not de-aged, but you know what I mean.
He's a fresh clone. He's a fresh.
Yeah. And I hate it even more than I did last issue, where I thought it was a reprogrammed Damian. unless it's gonna age him up, and this is how we get Batman with his hand again. Bruce, anyways. Oh.
I don't think that's where we're going with it, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like all of this is it's just continuing the plot. I think my big thing with this is that, potentially I could have enjoyed the idea of Batman reconnecting with the family and they all work together to take down the big bad. But to be honest, like, it just kind of happens mostly off panel. Like, he just kind of says, call in the family, call in the reserves, and they're just kind of all buddy again. I felt like, given that Dick and Babs and Jason are kind of reluctant to work with Bruce, I feel like there should have been more of, like, him earning their trust back, and instead it just kind of happens very quickly. And I think my biggest problem with it is how off Jason sounds. Like, Jason immediately starts being like, hey, I'm the one that you kind of mind altered, and I should be mad about that, but I think we should give him a chance. I'm like, I'm sorry, what have you done with Jason Todd's voice? Because I don't even like Jason Todd, but it's bugging me that this does not sound like Jason. He sounds like an even more positive version than Dick. What's happening right now?
Yep. Because there's a way to say that with Jason going, like, even though he did this to me, no one, Bruce has taught me that no one's beyond redemption, right? But now I'm gonna mess him up, something along those lines, or I'm gonna take out my frustrations on the Zur-En-Arrh Batman. None of that. This was, hey guys, he messed me up, but now I'm smiling.
Yeah, he smiles and says, we can move forward together. And I'm like, none of this sounds like Jason Todd in any way, shape, or form. So that felt off to me. I wasn't really feeling that. Obviously, the entire concept that we've had this character in Bruce's past. I mean, the issue even opens with a quick flashback of Bruce sort of saying he doesn't want to build a new personality into his mind. And what's his face? I can never remember his name.
Oh, he's the Warden. That's what we've been calling him.
Yeah, the Warden. Yeah, he's like, no, this is about ultimate control, Bruce. This will give you control. And the idea that he's given Joker a word that'll mess up Batman and all the stuff that comes up here, I don't like. But Zur-En-Arrh and the Warden are going to reprogram the villains of Gotham. They've got a machine, but they're all hooked up, and they're going to try and cure them and turn them into normal people by basically just taking away parts of their minds and replacing it or whatever.
With the piece of Batman.
With a piece of Batman. They're going to put a piece of Zur-En-Arrh into each of the villains. That sounds like a great idea.
Is this how he was going to get the Zur-En-Arrh people, out of their realms? Was we would have a Zur-En-Arrh Batman running around in Enigma?
Oh, I see what you mean. 1989 Batman Zur-En-Arrh would be the Zur-En-Arrh and, say, Riddler, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that what the plan was? Because it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, I will say, on the art here, right, obviously Two-Face is obviously one of them in the background. Like, it really, if it wasn't for the hats on the floor next to their feet, I would never have known that was Scarecrow. Because it looks like he's wearing a white robe. Very strange. But, yes, so, yeah, Jason helps Batman fight Failsafe / Zur-En-Arrh, whilst Dick is snooping around with Babsy's help, trying to turn off the machines and stuff. Tim goes to get Damien out of capture, so we get a sort of Robin v. Robin fight and all that stuff. It's all fine enough. Jimenez draws a good comic for the most part, right? There's very little to complain about with the art. I can't really fault that too much. The big thing, though, the big sort of linchpin in the plan to defeat Zur-En-Arrh Failsafe is that Jason has to die. And he has to die by the hands of... It's basically like, Failsafe got activated in the first place because it thought Batman had killed someone, right? It thought he'd killed Penguin. That's how this all started. Yep. So the idea is that if Failsafe kills someone or thinks he's killed someone, it'll basically mess with the program and he will just completely break down or whatever. So you're like, wait. Obviously, as this is happening, and it's like, hey, you've just killed someone, and he doesn't know how to compute it, I was like, okay, obviously Jason's just faking. He's not actually dead. That would be silly, right? And instead of just finding out that he's like, maybe slowed down his heartbeat with like a device or something like that, and he's lying there, we get a flashback to the caves before they came here, and Batman whips out a little vial of Lazarus juice and says, hey, This is enough to bring someone back if it's administered immediately at the moment of death. And I've designed
this. Is the last of the Lazarus resin I could find.
Yeah, I'm going to put it into a suit that'll just distribute it immediately when someone dies. And Jason basically chooses to do this and says, well, I'm the one that's got experience in dying, so...
So does Bruce, though, right? Like... is that so canon? Is R.I.P. so canon?
Well, but he didn't die in R.I.P. though.
Oh, he died in Final Crisis. That was the lead up.
No, or even Final Crisis, but I mean, he got shot into a different part of time, technically. We just thought he died in the moment.
That's true.
So
he got knocked out of the time stream, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it would have mattered more if it was Bruce that had done this, you know, and maybe it would have short-circuited Zur-En-Arrh enough, you know, versus just it being Jason Todd, where I feel like Zur-En-Arrh Batman would be like, oh no, not again. You know? That's the price.
Yeah.
But I thought that was pretty clever, though, that he you know, fakes a death that gets failsafe to take over the robot portion, because the failsafe programming can never be fully locked away. I thought that was pretty clever. Although I hated the mechanism that Zdarsky uses where Bruce, you know, used this time away and his meditation into remembering Zur-En-Arrh, building failsafe, and finding the loopholes in the back doors. I'm just like, I don't know, man. I'd rather have Bruce would have been like, hey, what started all this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He could have just figured this out based on what had already happened. That'd have been more satisfying. Yeah. I think I like the core idea of like making failsafe think that he's killed someone, and that would feel like it's calling back to the start of the story, and it makes sense why it would have a problem and not know how to cope with that, because the whole idea of failsafe is that it comes into play if Batman's went over a line, and that I think that core idea is fine, but like I don't like the execution of like actually technically killing someone. Like, he didn't need to, like, I don't know, it's just like Jason's back up and he's smiling like it was no big deal afterwards, and it just, you know, it's like a gotcha moment to the warden, like, haha, we figured this out, we problem solved it, you ain't got nothing on us.
Yeah, so this would be the first of 3 books that feature Jason Todd that I read this week. And again, I passed that point where I hate Jason. Just, you know, he's my least favorite Robin, but still, there has been stories recently where, you know, I can take him in doses. And out of all 3 this week, this is easily the worst characterization that we got. And it just, like you said, it feels off. He's way too smiley. You know, him wanting to sacrifice himself fits, but I almost feel like I wish they'd introduced that sooner, so him and Bruce could have that argument, you know? Like, I feel like that would have been... Him really pushing for it would be a big character moment.
I think...
And it skims right past it.
Yeah, I think willingly letting one of his sons get killed with some Lazarus that'll just immediately bring him back is a lot like the whole Zur-En-Arrh and the way it's been used in this run, to me. And that it's just making something so fantastical feel like such an easy feat that it doesn't feel like it has any weight to it, and just makes everything feel like... You know, I want Batman to feel a bit more grounded than what this run has been. Yeah. So I think that's that. The warden at the end is like, there's a storm coming. Bruce, you don't know what's coming. Like, I can see all the angles. There's something big's coming. So I suspect that is teasing maybe the next arc after Absolute Power or something like that. But yeah, big splash page at the end with all the Robins with Batman.
How do you like Tim's new suit? It's really more green. Mask is different. I think it's fine.
Look, I don't love it. I definitely prefer classic Tim more than this suit. But if I'm comparing to, say, the Drake suit, then it's, you know, it's fine.
His time at UPS.
Yes, his time at UPS.
I thought the mask, though, was a little bit New 52, and I don't want to be reminded of New 52 Titans. But yeah, I thought the green, I think that's a nice balance with him and Damian, if they're both going to be Robin, right? Yeah,
Damian's suit leads more to red, so Tim's will lead more to green, yeah.
I don't mind that, so... but that splash page does look nice. I mean, Jimenez, we all know Jimenez can draw, so, you know, but yeah. I was kind of hoping that the backup was going to start, and I didn't realize that it was the full... You know, a full comic story. So as I kept getting to the page and we weren't starting the backup, I was like, oh. So.
Well, I wasn't going to read a backup if there was one, so I just had to read 10 extra pages this week.
I didn't hate that one last time with the warden. I mean, there's certain things I didn't like, but that whole side of the plan to essentially brainwash Gotham's villains, I thought that was pretty interesting. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with the storm that he's talking about. So I thought maybe we'd get a little bit of like a post credit type of deal, but no, it just ended on that splash page.
Yeah. I mean, I think also what might have made this whole like death and reborn thing work for me better is that I don't think Batman should have known about it, bizarrely. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, in the context of the story, he's the one that came up with the plan, but I mean, I don't think Batman should be okay with one of them dying, even if he thinks he can bring them back.
Yeah.
So it would make more sense to me in the moment if Jason had done this behind his back, and for the moment where he's dead, Batman actually thinks he's lost Jason. That would have maybe add some weight to the moment.
Yeah.
And made it a bit more, you know. And that would tie into Jason being like the reckless kind of guy that he is. You know, it would fit the character for him to be like willy-nilly doing that to win, you know?
Where they have an agreement that, like, you know, Bruce is like, I have to do this, and Jason's like, no, you can't. And so Bruce is trying essentially to get Failsafe to kill him, but you know, Jason does a bait and switch or whatever. That, like, yeah, that would have been very fulfilling. And it also drives that story about the trust that, you know, because don't forget that under Zdarsky, Jason was traumatized, like not traumatized, but Bruce made him so fearful of things that he couldn't operate, you know? So that would reinstill the trust into them, I think, too. But yeah, and just having a suit with a bunch of little needles in it, too, to inject the Lazarus. I'm just like, this is the stuff that I don't enjoy.
Nah.
You know?
Nah, I mean, I don't think it's the worst offending issue of this arc. Like, I've definitely came out of other issues angrier. But it's not because this one solved anything. It's just that I'm already just at peace. Yeah, I'm at peace with some of the things that it's already done that it's pissed me off. The entire concept of this arc I've just not liked. But this one does have a few extra new wrinkles to throw in just to annoy me some more. But not as much as some of the other issues. The fighting was fine. It feels a shame that it's just the Robins at the end with Batman, because it feels like all the Batgirls are getting ignored, but you know.
Well, yeah, because Duke, so the Signal and Cass and Steph are also running interference. They're part of the Bat family. So, you know, so they're running interference on all the Bat bots that are roaming around and kind of stopping Savage from storming the prison, storming Blackgate. So, yeah, them being acknowledged would have been nice too.
Yeah. I don't know if I got much more to add at this point. I'm just glad this arc is done. I don't expect I'll like whatever the next arc is, because it's still Zdarsky on Batman, but maybe it'll be better. That's all I've got in my tank, is maybe it'll be better than what we've just had.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll be enough.
It's like, now do I want to go to 150? Am I going to end up having to read these because of Absolute Power? You know? Like, do I just use 150 as a jump off point? Because I don't know how much longer I can get going through this. This is just the sludge every time.
I love the idea that as soon as you say that, they're going to announce that the new run, whoever's on it, is going to start. And you're going to be like, well, I might as well finish this now, because
it never fails, Pete. How many times has that happened since?
A lot. It's happened a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, what are you rating Batman, Matt?
This is a 5.5.
Yeah. I'll agree. Well, no, I'll say 5. I'll go straight 5.
Yeah.
It's from a craft perspective, it's finely put together, but conceptually in what it's doing, I just don't like a lot of it, and the execution. It's been kind of the same story with Batman for a good few issues at this point, but
feels like forever at this point. They just keep coming out.
How long has his run been going though? Like at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
I want to say it started in the 20s, and we're on 48 now. And there's been some double shipping type stuff. So,
Joker year 1 was like a weekly thing for 1 month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Birds of Prey, issue 10, legacy number 208. Kelly Thompson writing with Robbi Rodriguez and Gavin Guidry on the art. So, last issue, the birds went into like a pocket dimension and everything was kind of bat themed, and we were kind of questioning why something pretending to be Barbara Gordon. This issue, they've been through another portal. Things have changed though, and it's more like 1950s America. And they find out from a new character that we'll talk about in a minute that whoever goes through the portal first, the world it creates around them is basically based on something from their brain. And there's actually a really funny bit early on where they're like, wait a minute, who went through first this time? And they realize it was Barda, and one of them says, no offense, but I thought it'd be like hellfire and brimstone if it was this is coming from Barda's brain. And Barda's line of Barda has layers cracked me up. I thought it was a really, really funny line. But yeah, so there's a lot of lore that gets dumped on us in this issue because we get this new character explaining who the main villain potentially is. I say potentially because I feel like there might be a swerve here where this character's also the villain, or is the villain just outright. I don't know.
Yeah, so I did a deep dive. So we'll get there. I did a deep dive on who this character is and what the names of her parents are.
Okay.
And yeah, so very, very interesting type stuff that Kelly Thompson's doing with certain characters like Barbara Gordon. This ties back to her. So it's very thought out, at least timeline wise.
Well, so yeah, so what we learn is that in the future, the reason why this is all tied to Barbara Gordon and these pocket dimensions are kind of like going back through time and seemingly doing stuff to try and kill her is that in the future, the birds of prey, but specifically Barbara Gordon, are actually the ones who kill the mother of the villain. I should probably explain this part as well first.
Yes.
All right. So the woman they meet in here, who's Celia?
Sella.
Sella. Okay.
Yep, Sella.
All right. She is one of 7 sisters, right?
Yep.
And the main villain, who's the one who was impersonating Barbara last issue, is Maya?
Uh-huh.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
And they are 2 of septuplets, right? Not just sisters, they're septuplets. And we find out, and I think this is actually one of the neat things the issue does, is the issue doesn't make it clear that this is talking about the future here, because the characters explain it in past tense. It's not until later on where they say, oh, and Barbara Gordon's the one who killed her mum, and that's what sent us going back through time. I'm like, oh, okay, this is all in the future. None of this has happened yet. But basically, all 7 of these girls had superpowers, and their parents, or at least their mother, was a villain of some kind with her own superpower. When their mother died, they all retreated as a team of sisters into their pocket dimension, which they had been doing and creating themselves for years at that point, as they were kids. Only this time, when they went into the pocket dimension, Maya went evil and started to kill all of her sisters. She killed the ones that were stronger first, because there's one that had like super strength. She killed her. There's one that could manipulate people's minds. She killed her next. To the point where it's now just the 2 of them that's left. Maya, who's apparently the evil one, and Sella, who is apparently the one who is just kind of helping, but doesn't seem actually that friendly.
She's on because it feels like if she gets killed, that's the last of the sisters, right? And then Maya will be unstoppable, you know? Yeah. Because she'll absorb her power. Because what's hers? Because they kind of go through them a little bit. One of them was like super strong, and then I forget what her powers are. But anyways, yeah, that's what it feels like. It's almost like she's just trying to stay one step ahead of her sister, and she's doing that through this pocket dimension.
Yeah, and she doesn't really feel like she has any hope of ever getting out of these dimensions. Even when the birds are saying, "Hey, let's go, let's try this," she never really kind of like buys into it. So it's a pretty interesting backstory, and I think definitely by the end of it, I got really interested in this idea, because obviously I don't think Barbara Gordon would intentionally kill anyone. That's not the Barbara we know. So that it does bring up the interesting question of how does that come to pass? Is there something that's been misinterpreted in the future, or is there like a really big reason why it happens? Like, so that's interesting. But once they tied it into like, okay, Barbara has something to do with the death of their mother, and this is what sort of set this happening, and these pocket dimensions are going back through time, and that's why it's a time travel threat, yada yada. Once it got to that, it was quite interesting. I will say, minor criticism in the book is that it's such a lot of information to get through from this character that it's definitely an info dump of an issue. Yes. Because it's like, okay, there's a little bit of like the surroundings, what's going on, Barda's a little bit sick from being hit with this black goo, but once it gets down to, okay, who are you, what's going on here, it's this big monologue and extended flashback sequence of all of this lore about who these sisters are, what happened to them, how they ended up in here. And it's not bad. Like, I can say I enjoyed it by the time it got to the end of it, but it definitely felt like from a pacing perspective, it definitely felt like an issue that didn't really move very far. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're still in the 50s, right? Looking around by the end.
Well, they're about to leave. They're leaving at the end of the issue.
Yeah. So not a whole lot. But yeah, so the whole idea of these seven sisters, they're based off of a constellation called the Pleiades, and they're all named after these, Greek figures. So when you start digging down into those figures, each of those figures is like, I believe that they're the seven sisters are the daughters of the Titan Atlas, who holds up the sky. And so when she talks about, her mom, it was Lanny Lockhart, also known as Lanny Gilbert, who was a villain known as the Velvet Tiger. And the Velvet Tiger, if you Google that, has made appearances in these books. Well, I say in these books. She's made appearances like in Detective Comics where she came up against Barbara Gordon, right?
Okay.
And then she shows back up in the 90s, and she is foiled by Oracle, right? And then the last time we saw her before all of this was in the Babs of Burnside era in the New 52. And each time she's a little bit different version of Velvet Tiger, but essentially it always boils down to she's a typical, like not quite a thief, but like a data broker, right? And she's trying to harvest all of this information about people, and Babs is always the one that stops her. So the fact that Sella says that her dad or her mom wanted them to have alliterative names like her, which was Lanny Lockhart, but the dad, that would have driven him nuts, and that he wanted the constellation idea. I think there's little hints there on who these are, and it wouldn't surprise me if they're people from a book of like Birds of Prey past. You know what I mean? Once they're fully revealed. But this whole idea that no matter what universe, or what iteration of the DC universe they're in, Babs thwarts, Velvet Tiger. And that's almost the reason why now that these seven girls exist, and that one of them is coming after Babs. So that's the stuff that I appreciate Kelly Thompson doing. It's telling kind of a story on these multiple levels. And yes, I had to Google because of course I need to know who Velvet Tiger is.
Well, this is just like when, Mark Waid puts in some obscure villain, but it's like, this is actually a neat pull because it ties into some ancient history with this character. Like this villain might be more memorable after this because of this story making a big deal out of it. And we do get to see Babs briefly. She wakes up and she kind of realizes she's in like some sort of 50s era. But she does establish one thing, is that she was making a contraption to get out of the room she was locked in before reality changed. So clearly she is jumping realities with the others whenever it changes. And the thing she made is useless now because now she's in a completely different type of room. But she has established that anything she is holding when she shifts reality, it will come with. It might change a little bit. The example she gives in her narration is that if she's holding a gun, say, it might go from like a Luger or something from like the old days to like a semi-automatic of a modern day, if that's the era that you're jumping to, but it'll still be a gun. It'll still be effectively that same type of item. Which makes me wonder though, let's say you're in like a modern era and you're holding a smartphone and you go back to like pirate times, like are you just holding like a horn or something? Like something simple?
What would be the equivalent of that? Maybe it's just a lantern so you can signal ships. Across the way.
Or a very simple like rudimentary megaphone or something. Something about communication. Just interesting to think about. But I like that though because it's Babs problem solving, figuring out what the rules are, and this idea that every time reality changes, she'll keep the fundamental things she has, but they will shift to be appropriate for the time period of the new pocket dimension. I think that's interesting as a rule. I'm curious to see how they play with that in the coming issues. But the big fight part of the issue is that Barda, when she got infected with the black goo or whatever, she is kind of possessed by the villain and gets up and fights the team. Canary even does her canary cry at her a bunch of times. There's a whole moment here where was it Sella's going to leave, but she turns back to help, so maybe they're winning her over a little bit. The payoff to this, though, which I did really like, is that effectively Cass just says, enough of this bollocks, stop fighting, and she just comes up to Barda and says, you're Barda, this is what you are, you're the first leader of the female Furies, you're special, you're amazing, I'm not going to fight you. And then it basically just breaks Barda out of the spell, where Barda walks over and says, no, you will not have Barda, I will not allow it, and she spits out the black goo, and she's back. So it's just, they've really been developing this fun friendship between Cass and Barda, and to have this little payoff where Cass is able to just appeal to her to sort of make her snap out of this possession, was a really nice touch. It was fun. I enjoyed that. So
well, and in that too, because we have like Megara trying to get involved too, and this infected Barda is breaking through whatever Megara is doing, and then Vixen tries to tap into the red, but it won't let her exactly. Like, she can feel that it's there.
Yeah, didn't Celis say something about how the villain,
one of the sisters,
basically these pocket dimensions have been used by like manipulating the red, so it seems to be like how these are created are specifically tied with cutting off Vixen from her powers. So. And
that one of the sisters could touch into the red, and then when she was killed by Maya, that power went to Maya. Now Maya's kind of manipulating that.
That's what it was.
So I thought that was pretty cool too, because here Vixen almost does, but it kind of fails. Like, it's almost like when they go to start the car and it starts and then dies, and you're like, oh, and that's where Megara gets in, and just a lot of fun teamwork stuff towards the end.
Yeah. Sella's got a pet that she keeps talking to, who I feel like keeps changing what animal it is. It was like a dog, then a cat, and then a crow later on.
Yeah. Well, and then its name is Poe as well, so I'm wondering if this is by the time it becomes a crow or a raven, if it's an allusion to, Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah.
Or whatever. But yeah, because I started to get confused. I'm like, I thought that was a wolf earlier. And then it's changing in the pocket dimensions to whenever it fits. So. Well,
no, because it's changing multiple times in the same pocket dimension.
Is that what it's doing too?
Yeah, because she's not changed pocket dimensions. It's just changing throughout.
That's right.
So that just seems to be specific to whatever it is. It's doing that. So yeah, at the end of the issue, they're sort of on the run because Maya's on her way, floating through the sky with all this energy around her, and it's like, hey, we have to jump through the new portal. On you go, and it's actually Sin that's going to jump in. And the final little sort of like question that's asked as she's about to jump in the portal is her and Madeira thinking, wait, the pocket dimension's created out of what's in our heads and in our past. Is it going to take what's in Sin's head? Or is it going to take from Madeira's past, which could be a very horrific pocket dimension if it takes from her, given that she's like a demi-demon god thing. So, I think that's a fun moment to end off on. Like, I think this is a really solid issue that really advances a lot of stuff. I think the only critique I really have is that because it spends like half the issue doing this big info dump, it does feel a bit less perfect in pacing than normal. I feel like Kelly Thompson's books are usually so well paced. This feels just a little bit more stilted because it's very much like, we need to stop now for all this explanation, and then we go, and obviously there's different art in that explanation, which will be the other artist for this issue. So it's good overall stuff though. It builds the story. I like the moment between Barda and Cass. I like the sort of establishing some of the rules with Babs starting to figure things out as well. All of this stuff's really good, and then the idea that we're building to like some sort of like thing that happens in the future with Babs is also cool and exciting. So
that's what gets me too, because the girls, after the mom is killed by Babs, or they say, that's when they escape to the pocket dimension, like almost out of grief.
Yeah.
Too. So I'm wondering if that's also affecting these, this thing where maybe Stella's not seeing things, right? Because the one sister that had the reality warping powers, that was the first to go, that Maya killed, was still sad from the death of the mom. So I'm wondering if like the emotional stuff also is at play here.
Yeah. And they were kind of being kind of coy about who the father was, right? Like I wasn't just misremembering that. They're hiding it, and I'm probably reaching here, but like the whole like everyone having the initials LL will drive him nuts. I'm like, wait, is it Lex? Is it because he doesn't want 7 kids that all have the same initials?
Right.
I don't know.
But they were okay with the stars and the constellation. That's the hint there. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
that doesn't feel like. I mean, I wouldn't say it's out of character for Lex to like that
No.
idea, but it doesn't feel specifically like Lex.
No. So yeah, so we'll see. But I feel like the dad, is a piece of this as well, because we didn't know what happened because he didn't die either. It was just the mom.
Yeah, he was still alive. He was just
Right.
distant. I think what it said. So
Yeah.
yeah, very very curious. I do like the art by and large. I like the kind of the shadowiness of it, particularly when Bard is taken over and there's a lot of deep black inks. There's a lot of kind of just something as simple as like having lots of silhouettes and having kind of like, I think Cass looks really cool in this sort of 50s version of her outfit. I guess this is the appeal of this art for the artist, is that they get to be very inventive with lots of different variations of the costumes.
Yeah.
So
Well, I like that Barda too looks more Jack Kirby than she has, right?
sure.
Because of the way that her costume in this is handled. And then of course Vixen with that kind of bombshells look, I'm always a fan of. So that all looked good. But what I really liked, and I think it was Robbi Rodriguez's art, is the flashback stuff. Or is that Guidry? I can't really tell who's who. But just the way that's almost pastel, like there's kind of a pastel vibe to it. And then when we get to that splash page that is of what happened to the sisters as it's telling the story, just the way that it kind of flows.
I think
as you follow
the color palette of the world they're in is very, very muted. Lots of like dark purples, blacks, grays, that kind of thing. So it makes like when the purpleness of the portal pops up, or even just like some highlights on the characters really stand out when they've got something colorful, because it very much is different from the world. It's very drab around them. So it makes the yellow on Cassie's outfit stick out. The green on Sin's got like a green cape on this particular world. All that stuff really stands out, and it makes it feel like things are in the world that are not meant to be there. I guess is what I'm trying to say with that.
Yeah.
So, very, very neat. So, no, still digging the book a whole lot. Matt, what are you giving Birds of Prey?
I'm gonna give this I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Solid 8. I'm not going to go higher because I do think the pacing's a little less perfect than it has been, but still, I think this art keeps adding more to what's going on, and unlike Zdarsky on Batman, everything it adds makes me go, ooh, that makes it more interesting, as opposed to, that's what this is?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that greatly. So that's Birds of Prey. Shazam, issue 12, Josie Campbell writing with Emanuela Lupacchino and Mike Norton on the art. So this kind of takes us to the next big step of this story, where now Billy is aware what the captain's been doing, and we kind of address the idea that they've kind of split into separate entities, to the point where he even goes and speaks to the captain in the Rock of Eternity to kick off the issue. And the captain tries to make him say the word and says he's doing it for his own good, he's trying to help him, and Billy storms out and says, no, I'm not saying the word, leave me. And he actually sneaks out of the house, but both Freddy and Mary show up and be like, no, we're still your siblings, we're still going to help you. Smash cut to the Shazvan, and again, Shavan sounds so much better. Like I really want to talk to Josie Campbell about the choice of putting that Z in there.
Now, do you think that's because it's Freddy and Freddy's kind of a goofball?
I mean, maybe. Every time I go to say it, I just want to skip the Z because it sounds better.
Yeah. Shazvan versus Shavan.
Yeah.
Yeah. The art there, I think this is Lupacchino. Just I can feel the like kinetic nature of the van, like it's weaving out of traffic just from that one panel.
Well, that's the thing though. I don't think it is. I think the speed lines are kind of just like almost in Freddy's imagination, because the conversation immediately is, wait, why can't we go faster? Why is it going so slow? And it turns out they can't go faster than 30 miles an hour because some parts of the engine fell out or something like that. So
but if I gut it, this lady might get up to 35. Yeah. But it feels chaotic. Maybe not kinetic wasn't the right word, but I feel like it looks like he's trying to weave in and out of traffic, which I think is very funny.
Dear. So yeah, they take Billy to see his mum, and that's like that's the main plot of the issue. Meanwhile, Darla, Eugene, and Pedro go with Hoppy into the Rock of Eternity to talk to the captain. And the captain explains that this bleeding from like the other dimensions or from the rock is Billy. It's tied to his emotions, and anytime he feels something big, that's what's causing these rifts, and we have to do something about it. So the big reveal in this issue, because Mary and Freddy go snooping around the house while Billy's talking to his mum, the big reveal is that Billy's mum's had another kid. And this kid has a bedroom in her house. There's paintings on the wall or photos on the wall of them on family trips. There's a happy little kid who runs in yelling "mummy," and like you get like it's hard not to just instantly get how much hurt this is going to cause, because it's not just this isn't just a case of like, oh, she got pregnant too young and gave him up to an adoption agency. Like, they had a crappy life living together. She gave him a shitty childhood until eventually he was taken away for his own good. And now...
he was taken away or wandered away, whatever origin it is that they're using, right?
And varies,
then she just replaces him with a new kid.
And this new kid gets the perfect childhood. So Billy just storms out, the others run out after him. And yeah, he gets to the point where like the rock's starting to crack, the energy's bleeding around him. Even like Freddy and Mary realize that the emotions must be tied to what's going on with all the incursions of the various monsters popping out of pocket dimensions. And you know, he finally says it, like, you know, she's a good mum for him, why couldn't she have been there for me? And he yells as monsters start coming through, ripples in space and time, and all sorts are happening around. Those big Hydra looking monsters are, you know, coming out. So yeah, he does say Shazam. Captain shows up, but you know, it does feel like it's maybe too late. And ultimately is like, okay, the only thing I can really do to try and save the Earth is move the Rock of Eternity. We have to get it away from Earth. So the end of the issue is the captain pushing it away. Mary tries to offer help, but yeah, he turns around and says, Billy says to tell you it's too late, goodbye. So we get a big dramatic ending where now Billy's missing because the captain's had to fly off with the Rock of Eternity. It's no longer at the house, and they're left there on their own, just saying Billy's gone. And the next issue it says, where in the world is Billy Batson? So, I mean, I think I really like what it's doing here, because this idea that he runs off, right? Because take this as just a sort of exaggeration of what really is happening, is that he's went through this emotional shock that the mother that abandoned him now has a new kid that she's a much better mother to. And now the life that he has found with other people is now threatened because of that. Even if he wants to stay with them, she now has like a say that maybe he won't be allowed to.
Yeah.
Right? So he storms off, all these emotions. Like, you can imagine a kid running away after finding all this out. It just so happens that because we're reading Shazam, he's got a superhero reason to run away. And now, you know, where is he? And like, you know, it's making me think of the end of season 2 of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where Buffy runs away from Sunnydale because she can't take everything that's just went down. I can almost hear the Sarah McLachlan playing as Billy flies off into the sunset. Yeah,
because and it's not just that he feels like he's doing it for their safety, but he has ulterior motives. It's because of him. You know, because if he just got his emotions under control, things would be fine, right? Like the Rock of Eternity wouldn't be bleeding and whatnot.
Plus, he's like 13, right? So his emotions are like the most heightened part of
all over. Yeah, hormones are hitting him hard, like a truck. There's an interesting thing here that there's some weird ghoulish-looking guy who is standing next to the alligator head people. That's like, oh, the time of monsters has begun. So I wonder if that's like a seeding for something, you know, like a storyline. Because I always like when they tie Shazam into like the Monster Men, and like, or the Society of Monsters and whatnot. So I'm wondering if this is kind of setting that kind of stuff up.
I feel like that's someone that you like longtime Shazam fans might just recognize. Nothing's clicking in my brain for who this guy is, but
I don't know. Yeah, he's kind of ghoulish looking. And he says, "Go back to your creator and let the master know the time of the monsters has begun." And we don't see him again, but yeah, he's next to the crocodile-headed guys. And then we also had the bat creatures from a couple issues ago, or was that last issue? So
yeah, it was last issue because it was when the social security lady was going around the house.
Yeah,
social services.
Social services. Yeah, not social security. He ain't that old.
Yeah.
But I do like that they're kind of reestablishing that the captain and Billy are separate people, and that the captain's been trying to
Well, also points out though that that's actually kind of a new thing. They've kind of split because of this. Like, it's almost like the captain's become a different personality because it's the safe personality you can retreat to, right?
Wait,
so
it's his guard. It's his guard against the world.
Yeah,
it's a face that he puts on, so he can do all this type of stuff. So I like that.
This is not a 0NR in the strictest sense, but what it is, it's more of a natural thing of like why people do kind of retreat into like not even a different personality, but like a different, like they'll protect themselves by acting tougher than they are or something like that. That's kind of what the captain is to Billy right now.
Yeah.
But it's become literal because again, we can do it literally because we're dealing with characters in a comic book. Yeah. So yeah. So I think that's all good fun. I think the reveal was nice and simple, but was really impactful because it makes a lot of sense that this would mess him up. That his mum's got a new son. So yeah, no, I like it. I have no real critiques. The art is pretty solid. I don't feel like I noticed the difference in art is too much, I would say.
No, because it's handled pretty well. It seems like a lot of the early stuff is Mike Norton, right? But they're very similar. But when it starts crossing over to, I think when Freddie and Mary get involved, it switches to Lupacchino.
Yeah, I think Norton's back towards the end as well, though. I think there's some stuff with
you think the Rock of Eternity stuff is more Norton?
I think whenever we're in the Rock of Eternity with the captain, I think that's Mike Norton, and I think all the stuff we're going to see the mom with Freddie and Mary and obviously Billy. I think that's
they mostly line up though too, so they don't. It's not that stark of a difference when it does change.
No, honestly, I had to kind of really look at the faces. But even when the captain comes to see the other kids and they're in the bedroom, that's still Mike Norton. So whenever we're seeing those characters, it's Norton. Whenever we're doing all the real world stuff, the others, it's Lupacchino. But yeah, it holds up together pretty well. I can tell if I'm looking for it. I can see it in the faces a bit.
Yeah.
But nothing too bad for sure. So yeah, good solid issue, I would say. What are you giving Shazam, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Yeah, no, I think this is an all solid 8 for me. I think this is really good stuff. So there you go. That's Shazam. Poison Ivy, issue 23. G. Willow Wilson writing with Haining on the art. Take it away, Matt.
Yeah. So Haining's been a fill-in a couple times, and so their art style is pretty good. Not quite Takara, but it fits in with what Wilson's trying to do. Plays with a lot of the chaos that's going on in the swamp. So a lot of the layouts are these multiple panel. Nothing's that kind of a straight angle. So even if it splits it into, like 4 lines, they're always at kind of an off angle. And so it adds to that chaos. But in the last issue, Pam decided that she's going to have the fungal, the mushroom zombies. What are those called? The cordyceps. The cordyceps zombies consume her and Floronic Man, and that'll put the end to all of this. Because Floronic Man will just keep being reborn, and this is the way. If she's also taken out, then he has no way back in. But over the course of this series, we've also known that Pam isn't, as much as she wants to be an isolated figure, because of who she is, she can't be. So for a lot of the issues building up to this, it was about how she's connected to the green. And this is almost as a response of, well, it's not just the green she's connected to. The life that she's led in Gotham has also created this network, in that when push comes to shove and she needs help, even her subconscious will try to get those people. And so the cordyceps zombies are starting to make a push towards Croc and Grundy and Janet, and Pam's looking on, helpless because she's being, pulled back into the green by all these zombies. And as she's watching them kind of envelop the shack, she hears like this loud engine sound, and it's Harley. So in the last issue, she had, before she had engaged with Floronic Man, she had kind of sent out this last kind of signal. And Harley, heard it because they're that connected. So she comes in and she starts swatting these things with her giant mallet, and she's in a monster truck, and it's all a lot of fun. And Janet tries to wave her over as like, hey, we need help too. And Harley's like, well, you'll have your turn. I'm here for Pam. And Croc lets Janet know. She's like, look, it's not personal, but Harley and Pam have a connection unlike anybody else. Of course she was going to come for her. Grundy keeps the zombies out for now, but he's slowly going through his week. So on this one, he's talking how he grew worse on Friday. And there's a lot of fun back and forth between Grundy and Croc. Like, it feels like there's a genuine friendship building between the two. So Harley fights her way through. She gets to Pam, and Pam's like, hey, you got to let me do this. I got to sacrifice myself. I know it's tough. And Harley won't let her. And as she's, kind of fighting, and Pam says that she loves her, she looks up, and there's this guy in a suit with a flower face. And about 10 issues ago, Pam had tried to get into that Undine company and had found out that the CEO, through one of his experiments, had gotten in touch with the Green. And he experiences it in different ways. So he shows up and is telling Pam, like, hey, I tried to tell you that your understanding was kind of black and white, that there's shades to all of this, that it doesn't have to be you or Woodrue. You can not share the power, but you can spread it out amongst you guys, and you won't have that issue. And so he tells Harley to keep a safe distance, that he's here to help. And he tells Harley, why don't you go help the people in the shack? So she heads in there, she talks to Janet, and she's like, oh, I should have known because you guys have that connection, but what does that mean for us as well? And Harley goes, wait, what do you mean us? So it's kind of the first chance that Harley's finding out that Pam and Janet kind of had a thing while they were on the road. But Harley is like, whatever we have, we're stronger than this. We'll figure it all out. And they head out to go save Pam all together. So Croc, Grundy, Harley, and Janet. And as Undine's trying to get control of Floronic Man and all the zombies, he starts to get shaky and says that he can't hold. And wouldn't you know, who comes in and, at the last second, when a hero's needed, it's not Batman, it's Jason Todd. Red Hood shows up because when Harley got that same signal, Batman also had felt something, because if you think back to the origin of Ivy, he was constantly thwarting her and telling her, like, you don't have to do things this way. So they're also kind of forever connected, not in the way that Harley and her are, but it's more of that adversarial thing. And so Batman couldn't go because that he can't handle this type of stuff, being Batman. So he sent Jason, and that he did synthesize an antidote for Pam and the zombies. And it's being fed into the water supply. So it'll essentially stop new zombies from spreading. And Harley questions about this, because how are we going to keep these things from repopulating? And Jason's like, oh, well, the bike that he came on has flamethrowers. Batman never stopped it, or never took those off. So she ends up surrounding Woodrue and Ivy and all of them in the swamp, and she ends up burning everything to the ground. And that really hurts Pam because she's still connected to all of this. And it's the fire. It's she, even though it's all these embers, she can still feel everything. And Harley tries to run over to Pam, but Jason stops her and says she needs to do this on her own. So essentially, she goes and she eulogizes Pam, that is Woodrue, and was like, here was Jason Woodrue. This is where he ended, not with a bang, but with a whimper, and that she always wanted to get the last word, and this is what she's gonna do. But now she has nothing to say. That she has nothing, and then she collapses, and this is where the issue ends. She collapses into Harley's arms, looking like the fire has finally killed her. So, but Pam's last words to herself are not that of sorrow, but of, she goes, "I'm finally free," because Woodrue's taken care of. It seems like their connection has been severed. And knowing that this is not the last, issue or close to it, it's still getting solicited. I'm wondering if this burning of the swamp and of all of the zombies and Woodrue and all this is almost going to have a rebirthing for Pam, because I know certain plant life, like redwood trees, they can only reproduce through fire, right? So these big thick trunks, and they soak up all of this water through fog, and so when a forest fire goes through, that's when they're able to send out their seeds and be reborn and keep that population going. So I'm almost wondering if, like the plant life that she's inspired from, this burning down of her connection to Woodrue is going to birth a new Pam, and we'll be off from there, because all of her friends are there. She's surrounded by all the people she really cares about, even though Batman's not there, but Jason's there. And yeah, so a pretty solid issue. Art's not, like, it's good, but again, it's not Takara. And as we get away from the chaos, more Haining, more everything starts to become more uniform. So the panels start to get more even, and there's less of those wonky angles. So storytelling wise and layouts, it's pretty good. But yeah, a really, really emotionally impactful issue, and I'll give it an 8.5.
All right. That'll take us on to the Boy Wonder issue 2, Juni Ba, both writing and art. So this I found quite charming last time. I thought it was a very easy read. I think issue 2 was kind of more of that. I mean, yeah, it was focused on a lot of Red Hood, which inherently is less exciting, but that obviously that's down to taste, and your opinion may vary on such a thing. But yeah, well, you didn't read issue 1 when it came out, but you've caught up for issue 2. I assume you liked issue 1 since you read issue 2.
Yeah, I liked issue 1. I liked hearing what you were talking about. So when I read it, it wasn't a lack of like, I wanted to read it, I didn't have time that week. So catching up on it, and I like the storybook aspect of it. Like, it feels like you're reading not a kid's story, but again, like a fairy tale. And who's ever telling the story to the kidnapper, seems to be has intimate knowledge of the Bat family. And so them retelling the story and calling Damien the prince and whatever, I like how that doubles down here, because we get to see kind of, if Damien's the prince, what does that make Jason, right? He's kind of like this failed kind of member of the Bat family, but so is Damien at this point, right? Because he's kind of grounded for chopping that dude's head off. And so I like that Juni Ba plays with the, this is the black sheep of the Bat family, but so am I. Where do I fit in like Jason? So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it sets up a little bit of Jason, and he's kind of like ostracized from the group a little bit right now. He's living on his own in a crappy apartment. And Damien comes to him for help, and he even paints a really sad picture. It looks like the manager of the building he's living in dies. Like, you see him introduced to him, but then like the next couple of pages you see like flowers around the door saying Bill Baxter, manager. It really sets up a thing. And there's like a kid with like a box painted red pretending to be Red Hood out in the hall at one point as well. But yeah, so Red Hood goes home, and Damien comes in just before he takes off his helmet to eat his chocolate bar. And he's like, hey, there's a thing going on. We gotta go. You're gonna help me. And Red Hood's just like, nope, not doing it. Nope, not helping a goddamn thing. But Damien insists. One of my favorite things about the art here, which is, again, the art is very stylized, and I'm not always to the taste of the faces, but every single time there's a panel of Damien in silhouette where his head's like kind of like half into his like cape, where where he's like, he's got his collar very high, and his eyes are just sort of peering out over it. Every time I love it. Every time it just suits Damien.
It's almost like he's too small for the cape. It's like he's trying to fill up more space than he can, right? And so it is, and it just, I'm always a fan of the Damien furrowed eyes, because he's taking things way too seriously for an 11-year-old.
Oh, of course. And there's even like a nice little metaphorical visual bit here where Damien goes to open a door and Red Hood says, no, don't go in there. That's where I keep all the stuff I don't want to look at. And then the next page is this full page spread of like Damien having opened this door, and it's just a completely black room, and the only thing that's in there is the beheaded guy that he killed. And it's kind of this idea that this room represents where all your baggage goes. And so far, this is what Damien's put in there. He's put in this beheading of this man. So, yeah. It even shows they're kind of similar, because it shows that Red Hood like has the horns at one point as well.
Yeah.
Again, the symbolic horns. They're not as big as Damien's. No. Because Damien obviously thinks he is bigger.
Well, yeah, because he's of the demon, right? He's from that lineage, whereas Jason has just been reborn through Ra's al Ghul, right? Like, so they're of the same, but they're not the same. So I do like that visual representation, because they're quite different too, right? Like, Jason's look more like traditional devil horns.
Yes.
And Damien's look more, like kind of flowery. Almost like kind of Wolverine, kind of same vibe as Wolverine's hair, right? It comes up and over, but yeah, so I like that. Also, I don't think we see Jason's face until the end.
No, because he almost takes his helmet off when Damien's coming in, but then that interrupts him and he keeps it on.
And I really like that, because you never get the emotion from Jason.
Yeah, they're doing. It's almost like a Judge Dredd thing. This idea he never takes off his helmet because he doesn't want to be vulnerable. He doesn't ever want to show anyone.
That's what I'm saying. It hides his emotional state better than anything, and I really like that thorough line through the whole issue.
Yeah, there's an interesting bit here actually when they're traveling to go to wherever, and Damien's like, "Hey, have you heard from my mother?" And Jason's like, "Wait, no. Why would I have?" And he's like, "Well, you did get brought back in a Lazarus pit. I thought maybe there'd be something." Yeah. And I actually think the panel flashing back to Jason climbing out of the Lazarus pit with the bandages like a mummy, it looked really cool.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of ghastly.
Yeah, it's really stylized. It feels like an old, like, sort of pulpy version of like a Universal Monster movie or something. I'm kind of into it. So they're hunting down this thing that's kidnapping people. That's obviously what the first issue set up. That's what Damien wanted help with. And we get to see this guy in his white suit. Again, he's got horns, so it obviously ties into the whole themes of the demons and all that. Obviously, we know he has like wings that can spout, but when they see him, he's just like really slim, and he's got a cane, and he comes across very kind of suave, but he starts beating away Damien with his cane. And there's some fun stuff here with them kind of yelling, and Damien keeps yelling "no guns," and Jason's like, you tell me what I can do. A bunch of stuff like that. So yeah, it's fun. I really like though the villain here. It's no wonder your mother never came back to you. He kind of pushes that button, and it's already been set up for the reader that Damien maybe has some insecurities about that, because he was just asking Jason, have you heard from her? And the very next page, the panel at the top, Damien yells shut up as he runs in to punch the villain. But an interesting little touch here is that there's no speech bubble. It's just big yellow text painted into the panel, almost as if he's yelling it so loud it's not a bit of speech anymore. It gives this idea that it's like a wall of sound coming for him. Not that it's successful, because the guy literally just puts his foot out and trips him. It makes him look a bit shit. So this guy does have powers though, because he says stay put, and you get like this visual of Damien's face inside his little speech bubble, and then in the next panel Damien's frozen still. He can't move, as if by some magic force. So, Jason's like, what the hell did you do? And then the guy puts some like green magic energy into Damien's eyes.
Jason's eyes.
Oh, sorry, in Jason's eyes, sorry, yeah. And it basically gives Jason a villain of his greatest fear, which, would you believe it, it's the Joker, because the Joker beat the shit out of him.
It's consistent.
Yeah, oh no, it absolutely is. So Jason starts firing his guns off like willy-nilly, trying to hit the villain, and the villain just sort of like tips his top hat as he's just like not even moving to avoid these bullets. He's just not worried about them hitting him. So they're definitely going for this kind of like the very suave version of the devil. They were not the big monster devil, but the one who's in a suit and like speaks like with a very affluent style and knows what he's doing. But he just says
a very fancy devil.
Yeah, he says like bye and flies off with his big white bird wings as he does. So Damien kind of finally like snaps out of it and kind of like he's all sort of hazy. The art does a good job of like doing all these like wavy lines coming from him. To show that it's kind of, but he collapses, and Jason takes him back to his place and patches him up. He got shot here, right? Yeah,
he gets shot. Yeah, so when he just starts firing, right, because he has the devil has messed with his vision.
Jason starts firing specifically.
Jason starts firing. He ends up hitting Damien because Damien couldn't move.
Yes.
Right, and that's where I love that Damien goes, "I said no guns," and that's his last words before he passes out.
Yeah, cut to we're back at Jason's and he's patching Damien up. So basically, Jason kind of opens up about Batman a little bit and finally takes off his helmet. And he's basically, Batman cares so much about you and keeping you safe and making sure you're okay. Why couldn't you do the same for me? And that's the full page where he takes his helmet off. So he still has this kind of, this feeling that Batman didn't care about him as much, and we get a quick flashback. Although, I will say that if we're going to get a flashback to the Joker beating him up with the crowbar, I will say doing this weird abstract version of Joker where he's just a bunch of big smiley faces in the shape of a bat logo is really funny.
Yeah, it's more startling than anything too, because it is absolute horror.
Oh, it's super creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Again, if I have to see the crowbar, like I have to see the pearls, at least make it something fun to read.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm not the thing that he should protect anymore. I'm just simply a failure. This is kind of what he ends up with. But Damien says that's not true. I beheaded someone. I'm kind of in, a same boat right now. So yeah.
Well, I like that he says, after scolding me for 6 hours, he told me about you. He didn't describe you as a failure. He said the failure was his for not knowing how to make you better. And I'm not proud of it, but through all that speech was, why can't he be as understanding with me? Yeah. And I love that, because it is a kid not understanding parenting, right? Like each person's different, and how he, parents. Damien is going to be different than Jason, right? Because they're different people. But just seeing that from a kid's point of view, it really, it really hit the emotional parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, Damien's basically saying that, like, from his perspective, like, he cares more about Jason than he does himself. Yeah. And then when he leaves, he just makes a point of saying, you've not been abandoned, Jason. So Jason, who's been sitting in this crappy one-room apartment with just like a mattress on the floor, that's what we spent a lot of time introducing early on in the issue. He gets up and walks through that door to the things that he doesn't want to face, which was set up earlier. That one where Damien opened it and it was just the guy who was beheaded. So it's just, it's this idea that by the end of the story, Damien has helped Jason kind of like face up to what he's hiding from. So it's kind of an interesting story, and it's very different from his like story with Dick last time.
Yep.
So yeah, really interesting. And it says next time Red Robin. So yeah, Tim's obviously going to be the focus next one.
What I like about that last page is that the door, like the room that the door is blocking, is no longer dark. There's light coming from it. And that just shows the light is hope, and that Jason can one day join back those ranks, because now he feels worthy of it. And I thought that simple image right there says so much without any dialogue or any, there's no real text there. So
yeah, I think Juni Ba, unlike some artists who also write their own stuff, like does trust himself to tell some of the story with the art. Sometimes I feel like writer-artist combination, sometimes they over word things because they don't
Right.
like, which is weird because you think they trust their art more because they're artists.
That was kind of the Travis Moore Nightwing annual, right? There was a lot of stuff there.
That's not the worst
filling in.
example of it, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of like that, yeah.
But along those lines. But yeah, here it's you could almost in theory do this like a silent issue and you'd still get almost as much, you know. But yeah, I also want to point out the villain, the devil guy. He said his name is Rock, and if you look up Rock in Middle Eastern mythology, it's this gigantic bird, like a giant mythological bird.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's what he keeps turning into and whatever. And I thought there'd be a deeper meaning, but really at the end of the day, it's just a giant bird. It's not like a shape changer or whatever. So I also feel like this is, Damien's version of what the devil is, right? And it's kind of whatever it is kind of tempt him.
I mean, if nothing else, it makes sense it's a bird because we're doing a story about the robins.
Yep,
so,
of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, very very good. I'm glad I got caught up because this is, it's an exercise in storytelling, I think too.
Yeah, honestly,
we're getting
for a
Damien.
book that's almost 40 pages, it flew in. To be honest, it does not feel like it takes a long time to read at all.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so hey, so as much as all the Jason complained, this was a good story about Jason this week.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Jason in Ivy and then Jason here, both the voices made sense. Like in Poison Ivy when he's like, Bruce couldn't make it because of everything that's going on, but he sent me, right? And that also drove home the Ivy, the anti-hero kind of vibe of her. But the voice was there, him wanting to help him with the flamethrowers, with Harley and all of that. And here his voice was really, really well because it wasn't ever really pity poor me, right? He was like, I'm broken, I can't be fixed. This is what I do now. And how that plays off of Damien. So yeah.
The art's pretty much very, very good. And the reason why I say that instead of just outright excellent is because I don't necessarily always love the faces in this art style, but I think it works for certain characters, particularly Damien and Red Hood when he's got his mask on. But I think more than that, it does do a good job with the layouts of telling the story, with the choice of like when the colors in the background change, or just like it flows so well. So for any little nitpicks that I can make for like maybe sometimes not loving how something on its own looks, the story always flows, and it like the pacing of it's always perfect. So I do think Juni Ba is a very strong sequential artist, and I think that's what's on show here.
As and with the silhouettes too, right? Like there's a lot of storytelling through that with just Damien's eyes popping up out of there, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And even the Rock character, you don't ever really get a lot of details with him, but it's all white instead of black. So, but very, very, very skilled in what Juni Ba is doing.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, what are you giving The Boy Wonder issue 2?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I'm going to go 8.5. I think this is maybe even the best thing I read this week, which is impressive. So
yeah, saying a lot.
So very cool, very cool. All right, well, before we're done, I have a Patreon book to do. Every month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can make me read a book at one of the higher tiers of your choosing. Today I'm looking at Batman and the Outsiders issue 14. So, we had the annual last time, which was pretty standalone. That said, though, it did set up that Halo was going on a date at the end, and that someone mysterious was watching them on the date. Someone in like a trench coat and a hat. And that actually does get picked up very, very immediately here. Halo's on her date, the start of issue 14, with this guy, and he mentions that, or she says, "Oh, was that really your restaurant that you own?" And I was like, wait a minute, she's in high school. Like, who's she dating that owns a restaurant? And to be fair, he does say that, no, my dad owns the restaurant. And I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. Right, all right. He's a rich idiot, but like, at least that makes more sense. So anyway, but they're at like her apartment building where she lives with Katana, and he's like saying, oh, we could do this again sometime, blah, blah, blah. And she wants to go in for a kiss, and she is. She's leaning in. You get this close-up panel of her going in, like things go a bit more moody, almost silhouette-esque. And then this figure who's watching from the alleyway kicks the bin, the trash can over, And I'm noticing, I didn't even notice this when I was reading it, but it looks like one of the things in the trash can is a McDonald's like Big Mac box. It's got the M on it. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Oh, there's a Pepsi logo on that cup. Did they like pay for product placement this episode? That's weird.
Probably not, and the artist was just going for it.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess technically it's just, there's no red background to the M, so I guess you get away with it. So it's like this noise, and like the guy's like, oh, go inside, and I'll go and try and find a policeman or something. Someone weird's back there. And Halo, as soon as she's left on her own, she's like, okay, that was probably just some homeless guy, but it ruined my day. I'm pissed. So she suits up into her Halo outfit, sees that whoever it was has left behind a trench coat, like, you know, it's like taken off the disguise and left it. And she's like, wait a minute, those burn marks. I think I know who this is. He's going to get it, right? So we get a couple pages here of her like chasing someone flying over the city. She blasts him, and it turns out to be Geoforce. Geoforce was spying on her on the date and interrupted it when she was about to kiss the other guy.
What a creep.
And she shoots him out of the sky, and he lands in the sort of the penthouse where her and Katana live. And she's yelling about what he did. It's like, oh, this man ruined my date. He's a creep. He was watching, and he ruined the date, and now I'm going to die, like, alone, because this guy's never going to call me ever again. Even though that's not the sentiment I think anyone got from the exchange that he said to her last time. But he's like, it's true, I was worried, like, you Americans are a lot more open with these things. I was just chaperoning the date to make sure everything was fine and he wasn't taking advantage, right? And actually my favorite exchange of this, which feels, I don't know if it feels dating necessarily, but it just to caught me off guard, is that Halo responds to that with like, besides, sometimes a girl wants to be taken advantage of, to which Brian gasps, and then Katana butts in and says, stop, Gabrielle, before Brian has a stroke. And I'm like, jeez.
Halo doesn't know what she's saying. I'm just gonna chalk that up. She's still kind of she's still experiencing life.
This is funny to me. She said, oh no, I wanted them to fill me up. I wanted to get dirty. And he's like, oh, I can't imagine. What young woman would say such a thing? He's such a...
his proper posh, European self.
Anyway, I don't know, it cracked me up. But this is a big part of this issue, but it does set up a villain plot, but that kind of like just builds up towards the end to a cliffhanger. The main plots of this issue, by and large, are the love lives of Halo and then later Brian as well. Has not a date, but kind of someone that he's interested in. But I'll get to that. So Halo's still pretty pissed. Katana goes to Brian and says, look, I'll try and smooth things over with her, but you can't ever do that again, right? You understand that, don't you? And he's like, yes, ma'am, I understand. So, right. Anyway, so, but just before this scene ends, Katana goes to see Halo and says, look, I know you're desperate to try and like figure out what your past is and all the rest of it. It's actually kind of ironic because for me, I want to start again. I don't want to really be a part of my past anymore. We're at kind of different points, so we make quite a pair. And this gives Halo an idea, right? We get a light bulb at the end of this panel. We'll come back to that. Then we get to what the villain sort of build up of the issue is. So it's actually Zeus, Maxi Zeus, who is in Arkham, and he gets all excited because he sees in the newspaper that the Olympics, the Summer Olympics for 1984, are in Gotham.
Oh boy.
And he gets all excited because one of the athletes, I think, who's in the thing, like her name is an alternative name to where was the line here? Oh, maybe it's a different scene, so maybe it's not in this one. But it's like this name is an alternate name for the wife of a god who's basically the equivalent to Zeus. So now he's obsessed with going to the Olympics to take this woman for his wife. That's the gist of it.
So is it a version of Hera? Because Hera was Zeus's wife.
No, it's the Greek equivalent of Zeus. What's the Greek equivalent of Zeus?
Zeus is the Greek equivalent of Zeus. So do you want the Roman one?
Okay, what's the Roman equivalent?
Is Jupiter.
Jupiter. Okay, what's Jupiter's wife?
I have. I don't know what the version of Hera is. So
Yeah,
because
you get the chain of like logic here. Okay. Yes. Anyway, where are we? I'll get to the because it comes up in the book later. It's just not in this scene. So Brian's at college and he gets talking to like two other students and
Juno. Sorry.
Juno. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, and Juno's the name of this athlete, I think.
Got you.
So he becomes obsessed. He's like, "This is a sign. I want her." So he actually beats up the janitor who's allowed to go into the cell and takes the janitor clothes to get out. So he sneaks out. All right. So that's a quick scene. Brian makes a study date with a student, and they invite another student, but she's like, no, I've got another thing to do tonight. But then has a little thought bubble saying, and somehow I don't think you two are going to do much studying. So it's like, oh, he's kind of get a date with this woman at his college. All very nice. Meanwhile, Halo shows up at the bookstore that Katana now runs with one of her teachers, a Mr. Takami, who she claims she just bumped into, but Mr. Takami's like, no, you told me to come here. Like, oh, never mind, I've got stuff to go do. I'll leave you two alone. And just leaves, and like, he's like, I think we've just been set up, Miss Katana. And she's like, yes, I think so too. Smash cut to Katana coming home and telling Halo to never do that again. And it was her choice when she wants to start looking for someone and maybe date. I mean, she gets nice about it by the end of the scene. She's not like mad for long, but it's just, you know, I think what I like about this though is that she's butting in to Katana's love life unwanted in the same way that Brian was butting into her love life unwanted. Right. So while they're not doing the exact same thing, like it's almost like she's getting not a taste of her own medicine, but she's kind of like realized she's guilty of something similar that Brian just did, even though the way he did it was a little bit more creepy, but like, you know, the intention was seemingly from a good place.
Right.
Although arguably there's a subconscious reason as well, which we'll get to in a minute. But meanwhile, Batman's investigating Arkham because Zeus escaped, and the warden or whoever's like, oh no, there's no evidence here as to how he got out, and Batman's like, I'll be the judge of that. I'm Batman. So he starts looking around and he finds the newspaper and he sees the woman. And yes, so the woman, that's Lucinia, which is another name for Juno, the wife of the Greek mythology of Jupiter.
Right.
The Greek equivalent to the god Zeus. That's what it says.
Man, they got some mixed up because Roman and Greek, Roman definitely borrowed from Greek, but Juno and Jupiter are distinct Roman deities, and then Zeus and Hera are the Greek. So, yes. Yeah. Maxi Zeus is also crazy. He thinks he is Zeus. So, he might just have a complete,
he also always speaks in the, almost even the word for it, when it's not just that he doesn't speak in the third person, he always says we. Like, we's his pronoun.
I need more Maxi Zeus though. He's kind of low key fun.
Yeah. Like, so he goes up to like the Monitor's place, right, and basically recruits a team of villains. Yeah, they're not. Yeah.
How does he get up to the Monitor? This must have been right. This is right as Crisis is kicking off, then, right?
I think it's just a bit before because this is 1984.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Because Monitor, they tried to sell that Monitor was like this threat that was rounding up villains, but Monitor was putting pieces in, putting stuff into place, so the heroes can rise up.
Interestingly, there's like a meta note here on this page where it mentions, okay, you'll have the assistance of the Monitor, blah, blah, blah. At the bottom it says, the Monitor was created by Marv Wolfman, age 38, of Flushing, New York. Now, Wolfman also like was writing books right now, so it's like a weird meta thing they're doing with that. I don't know. Weird.
Yeah.
Really specific. Anyway, so Brian, Geoforce, is with this woman from college, and they're at his place, and they kiss, right? They kiss as they're going in the door, and just as that happens, Halo opens the front door wearing nothing but a shirt, and says, I've been waiting simply for you, darling. Why don't you tell this cleaning woman to leave? so you can come spend time with me. And then this woman that's with Brian's like, cleaning women, and like she says it again with like the icicle speech bubble, and storms off. And Brian's like, no, wait, Alyssa, wait. And then he comes inside, and Halo is on the floor laughing her ass off. Like, she is rolling on the floor laughing, saying, now you know what it feels like. You ruined my date, now I ruined yours. Ha ha ha.
Boy, the sexual tension between these two.
I know, it's so, like, at this point, it's so clear where this is going. But she's like, ha ha ha, I ruined your date. The look on her face was priceless. And he's like, oh no, this is completely different to what I did to you. Understand, this is so different. And then she's like, double standard. She actually sticks her tongue at him, and she flies off. And Halo undoes his shirt. Brian undoes his shirt to like change into costume. And then Halo even laughs at that and says, wait, you weren't wearing your costume under your clothes? Haha. But he gets in his costume, he flies off chasing after. They chase each other through the sky. He eventually grabs her, and she's like, no, let me go. And he's like, Gabby. And she's like, Brian. And then they kiss. In the sky, they kiss each other. There's a halo of light all around them. And this is their big, it's your Xander and Cordelia kiss. It's like, okay, we've been hating each other this whole time, but it's all been sexual tension.
And I like their vibe too, because he's ground-based and she's light-based, right? So that, like, they kind of balance each other.
Yeah. So, no, it's fun. It does kind of call into question, though, that he wasn't doing it all for good intentions at the start of the issue. The whole spying on her. I mean, now it feels like he was being jealous, which makes it does feel like it's just a bit stalkery. But whatever, they have this moment in the kiss, and that's it. And just to check in on the lives of the others briefly, there's a page that shows that Black Lightning's trying to phone his ex-wife, but... but he's like, hey, I've been trying to reach you, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, Jeff, I can't talk right now. And you can see that she's got a man with her. So the panel after, it's just him, like, just Black Lightning sitting there looking really sad. And in the same page on the other side, it's Metamorpho trying to phone Sapphire, but Simon Stagg picks up the phone, and he's like, hey, let me speak to Sapphire. And he's like, never, and he hangs up the phone. So then the last panel on that side is just Metamorpho just looking pissed off. Right. So it's just this is like just checking in on the love lives of everyone. It's mainly Halo and Geoforce, but everyone else gets a little slither of something.
So does Black Lightning have his kids yet in canon? Or
I don't they've not mentioned them, so I don't think so. But I don't know for sure. I don't think they've mentioned them at all in this run. Gotcha.
That was the first time I ever read them, as they showed up in Outsiders. Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Maybe they do have kids, but I don't remember that coming up as of yet. So anyway, then it's time to actually get the plot going. 17 pages into the comic, which is not a complaint. One of my favorite things about this book is that it does take time to just do the personal lives of all these characters that aren't Batman. Like, Batman will show up and be Batman, but it's all the other characters who actually get personal time. They're the ones who get the stories.
The book really should be called The Outsiders with Batman, but that wouldn't sell.
Yeah, they sell the book, so
yeah.
But it's basically a bunch of newscasts saying, "Hey, the Olympics are here. The opening ceremony. Ronald Reagan is in this comic book. He's here to do a speech and anoint the Olympics and all that."
Yeah.
So, whatever. Also, I don't think I knew this, or if I did, I'd forgotten it. But Black Lightning had a gold medal in the Olympics before.
Okay.
Because he's getting interviewed as a former Olympic athlete, and he's just like saying, "Yeah, I'm a teacher now, and mind's more important than your body." But yeah.
I kind of love 80s comics.
Yeah, it says that he won the gold for, what was it? It was 1974. Decathlon gold medal winner.
Oh, okay. Decathlon's that weird event that there's a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah, it's like a gauntlet of things.
Yeah.
But anyway, like, the Outsiders are all here. Obviously, Batman's figured out that Zeus is going to be coming after this woman. So they're all like in disguise. Metamorpho's selling ice creams at the event. Katana and Halo are in the crowd. Everyone's here. But basically, Batman realizes that with all this security, which is really beefed up because the president's here, the one thing that would get past without anyone thinking twice is the news helicopter. So he realizes that that's probably where the villains are coming in. And you've got the runner with the torch, coming up for the opening ceremony. And as he goes up to the steps to go up to the torch to light it, an arrow shoots the torch out of his hand from the villains, and we get a big full page spread where, here we go. It's Maxi Zeus and the New Olympians with a bunch of villains who I couldn't tell you who these characters are, but I'm sure
they're probably all based off of Olympians. So I'm sure there's like an Artemis and an Apollo and
I'm sure I actually didn't mean to look up DC Wiki just to get a list of names. I'm sure the next issue will probably say who they all are, but they don't bother here in this issue, probably because the issue's about to end. But basically, like the Secret Service are like, get away from the president. We'll fire on you if you don't stop pointing that bow and arrow at him. But Zeus comes up and like takes the woman and is like, aha, do not harm her. She is to be my bride, or something to that effect. And she'll be into this when she knows what the intent is. Yeah, I'm sure she loves the idea of marrying you. Yeah. She'll be loving that. So the book just kind of ends with a big splash page of the outsiders like coming in costume, and so yeah, Batman says, "Hey Zeus, this is supposed to be a contest. Why don't your gods take on us with your own rules?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's the games begin." So clearly, this is like a two-parter that's tying into the fact that the Olympics, were they in the US in 1984? I don't know.
Yeah, they were in LA.
Well,
that's where USC got their new Coliseum back then. That's now really old. So, all
right. Well, this was obviously a big thing to tie into that then.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm looking at what the decathlon has, and if that's the case, then Black Lightning is one of the most athletic characters in all of DC. If he got a gold medal in that, because it is 100-meter long jump, shot put, high jump, 400-meter, and then it splits it into 2 days. So day 2 is the 110 hurdle, the discus throw, pole vault, javelin, and 1500. So
it's 10 things. That makes sense. The decathlon.
Yeah. And so just all of those different things, he got the gold medal for that. Like that is impressive without using his powers.
I suspect that when we see all these fights next issue, that they're going to work in Olympic events into the fight somehow. There's going to be a javelin throw, and there's going to be...
I hope he throws an electric discus at one of these guys.
Yeah, someone's going to do a high jump over a beam or something. There's going to be a whole bunch of shit. I'm not about it.
That is so funny.
Yeah. No, I mean, I actually really like this issue. I like when this book takes time to develop the smaller characters that I don't know as much about. So seeing, I really love that two-parter that fleshed out Katana's backstory. Mm-hmm. But seeing Geoforce and Halo get a lot of time here, like I liked all that stuff, and it just sort of teases what the main villain plot's going to be throughout until we get the big event at the end. And I think the pacing here, having like the villain story split over 2 or 3 issues as opposed to being all in one issue, is perfect for this time period. Because obviously these days everything's like 6 issues or whatever. This feels perfect for this era and how these issues are written and how much content there is per issue in terms of how quickly it moves through things. I feel like having the villains set up by the end of one issue, give us a cliffhanger, and then we can wrap it up in the next one. It feels more like an old school TV show to me, where between 2 issues it feels like a 45-minute episode of an 80s TV show.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like it. It feels different from a modern comic. So, fun. Yeah, I mean, a little creepy behavior by Geoforce aside, there was a mostly feel-good little romance story for this one. So, solid 8.5, I'll say. I really had fun with this. It's just a fun time. I don't know. It's hard for me to be mad at it. It feels so refreshing as well because it's so different from modern comics. So maybe that's helping it out a little bit. All right, there you go. That'll take us out to the final part of the show where we pick our favourite things of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, top artists, top 5 books, the usual shebang. So, Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
So thinking back on this week, that with such few options, there was a couple in Poison Ivy I really liked. I liked when Harley shows up in a monster truck. I like when that final page of Harley holding Ivy is really strong. But as good as those are, nothing really resonated with me as much as the last panel of Boy Wonder, of that slightly open door with the light coming behind it.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very, very strong image, so that's gonna be mine.
Yeah, that's fair. I have a few things I could pick, actually. I think the first moment Damien opens that door is quite good in Boy Wonder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I could easily also pick the moment where Billy loses his cool after finding out everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go with Cass talking down Barda. It's just it's the emotional beat of the week for me. So yeah, that's what I'm going with. Cover of the week. I've actually got a few things I could pick. There's a Sam Neill cover for Boy Wonder, which is solid.
Yeah.
There's a Shazam variant by Tom Riley, which is like Billy sort of like with the lightning bolt above him. You see Shazam in the lightning bolt. It's a nice cover. But I mean, if I'm picking one, it's probably going to be the Birds of Prey variant by Serge Acuna. Even though it's kind of weird that it's the roster from the first arc as opposed to this current arc. But regardless, the art's just really nice, and it's just but there is also a Francavilla cover.
Yeah.
But I will say Francavilla, I think, benefits from a style overall. So I don't think Francavilla covers tend to rank up there with the best covers for me. It's more about how it looks and flows as a whole to me. But, worth mentioning all the same. What's your pick?
Well, you mentioned those ones. I like the Francavilla, but the main cover for Birds of Prey with Barda in the middle of like the suburbs, is strong. Ivy had a couple, of course, right? There's a Chris Bacalo one that's got Ivy perched on top of the skull that is surrounded by flowers. That's just kind of eerie. And that looks nice. And then there's a Frank Cho kind of pinup style one that's also nice. But looking through all of them, I think I'm going to give it to the main Birds of Prey cover.
Okay, cool. Art of the week.
Oh man, this one's kind of tough because Boy Wonder's really strong, but I also thought Poison Ivy was good by Haining. Birds of Prey was a nice split. I'll give it to Haining for Poison Ivy.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I feel like I really like the art in most of the books I read, but none of them are like that step above into being like absolute favorite tier. So it's actually kind of a tough pick. I think I'm leaning towards Boy Wonder, although it's very close between that and Birds of Prey, I think, for me. But I'll say Boy Wonder overall. So cool. All right, and then top 5 books, Matt. On you go.
All right, so number 1 for me is going to be Ivy. 2 is Boy Wonder. 3 is Birds of Prey. 4 is Shazam. 5 is something I didn't read, so I don't have to place Batman. But I guess Batman will place at 5.
Number 1 for me is probably Boy Wonder by a smidge. And then I'll say... I think I'll actually put Shazam slightly above Birds of Prey this time. Birds of Prey at number 3. And then a big gaping hole. And then number 4 is Batman. So, there you go. That's the books. All right, next week, come from DC Comics, though, we have Green Lantern, issue 12, Batman and Robin, 10, Blue Beetle, issue 10, Red Hood, The Hill, 5, Batman Gotham by Gaslight, The Kryptonian Age, issue 1, so it's a big new issue 1 that we can check out, Suicide Squad, Dream Team, issue 4, Outsiders, issue 8, Sinister Sins, issue 5, DC Pride Uncovered, issue 1, they're putting out a facsimile edition of Gotham by Gaslight, issue 1, you got Mad Magazine 38, Batman and Robin and Howard issue 4, and that's pretty much it. There's just variants of things past that point. So, yeah, not a huge week again, but first of this new Elseworld initiative should be interesting. Yeah. I feel like I probably should go and try and read Gotham by Gaslight before this, because I've not read it before. But I don't know if I will. So maybe that'll be an interesting perspective, is that someone who didn't read Gotham by Gaslight yet.
That's how I'm going to go in, because I kind of know the vibe of Gotham by Gaslight. But seeing how that fits in as not a standalone, but the next chapter, I'm curious to see how that works.
Yeah. It's for whatever reason, it's one of the few big like single Batman stories that I just never get around to reading.
I'll tell you, I'm super excited for Green Lantern. The way that last one is.
Oh yeah,
ended.
that run has been on fire. So that's my most anticipated for next
Yeah.
week, for sure. So very cool. All right, so that pretty much brings it into the show, everyone. This has been episode 411 of Comics from the Multiverse. Of course, you can support the podcast and all the other stuff that I do at MailFuzz Movies and TV over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses and whatnot, but early access here or there. But mostly just help keep the lights on and keep the content coming. So that is that. Otherwise, rate the podcast, like on YouTube if you're watching it there. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.